Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Southern Beer Review coming at you with episode number 11. And we're doing something a little bit different today. For the first time in our podcast series, we're not actually reviewing a beer at the brewery where we bought the beer. What we've decided to do, and we're coming to you, pretty good view behind us, we're coming to you from Smith Lake, Alabama. We decided to come up here for a weekend and we have some buddies meeting us. We are reviewing a beer for episode 11 that is as classic gets as far as beers from around the world are concerned. This is Pilsner Urquell. It was first brewed in 1842 in what is now the Czech Republic. And like John was saying a minute ago before we came on air, just about every Pilsner from around the world today kind of measures itself by Pilsner Urquell. Would that be a good way to say it? This is the Pilsner.
It invented the style.
Right.
There was no Pilsner until Pilsner Urquell, and now we have the style of beer of Pilsner. So it is the standard, I would say.
Right. And Pilsner's obviously a little lighter in color, easier to drink most of the time. But we just thought every now and then that we might try to, with our podcast, squeeze in some of these beers from around the world that we think you would enjoy. That are just kind of
not
classic.
A Southern beer, but it's still it's one of my. I think on the initial episode, if you've seen our episode 1 way back when we were at the district for our very first beer ever on this podcast, I mentioned Pilsner Urquell as one of my top 3 beers. So I'm excited to get to review it. I know I love it. I've never thought about rating it though, so that'll be interesting. I'll rate it based on how I feel as I try it this time.
And one more thing to think about too. If you get a chance, go on Pilsner Urquell's website, and they've got a nice history written up about the brewery and about the beer and the brewing process and what goes into making a Pilsner. So if you get a chance, and don't just do that with this beer. Go so far as to find yourself a checklist of classic beers and check them off. Because like I said, we're not just going to bring Southern beers from the actual breweries to you. We will squeeze in some world classics like this every now and then. So
well, speaking of which, tomorrow I think we have plans to start a new series called our Port Series.
Yeah, so look for that coming too, because you'll enjoy that.
That will be a little different as well. And one thing I'll mention before we sample is the alcohol content is only 4.4, so it's a low, easy drinking alcohol, but as I recall, it's full of flavor. So cheers.
All right, cheers. Yep. And again, while John's getting started, you can see the classic Pilsner color, kind of a golden color.
Looks a little off in my glass because my glass is a little tinted. His is more clear. We don't have our usual glassware like we would have at the house. One of our houses, so we had to kind of settle for what we could find here at the lake. So hopefully that's not going to disturb the drinking experience too much.
One more thing too, I'll say while we're sampling the first couple of sips. About 23 years ago, John and I bought a book called "The Top 500 Beers in the World" by renowned beer expert Michael Jackson. Obviously, the beer expert, not the singer. And John and I have set out to try as many of those as we can. And in our previous video, when we were at Goat Island, I mentioned the trip to England. This is one of the first beers that we were able to sample from that book, to give you an idea of how highly it was thought of. So that's kind of what turned us on to Pilsner Urquell to begin with.
Yeah, the thing that strikes me about this beer on the first couple sips, and what has always struck me about this beer is it's a very refreshing. It's a very refreshing beer. It's got a very good crispness, but it's got a good hop quality too. It's not an overbearing hop quality. It's not like it's an IPA or something, but for a lager, for a Pilsner, the hops are very present, and I don't get a lot of sweetness from it. I just get a lot of crisp, kind of refreshing, something you'd want to drink on a spring, summer day kind of thing. I really love this beer.
And we don't sample this and go over what we're going to say before we do the podcast. The very first thing I thought of when I sipped this, while he was talking just now, is for a Pilsner, it seems just a little bit more hoppy than most. and not IPA hoppy. I'm not talking about that, but you can
It's a
definitely.
very pleasant hoppiness for a Pilsner, and I appreciate that about it. And yeah, I mean, it may be why I explain. I've always liked hoppy beers, and so it may explain why it's one of my favorites beers of all time. Now, I did tell William before we started this, if you've been keeping up with our series, we did the Old North Lager from Highwire Brewing a few weeks ago, and that really knocked my socks off. So I don't know. I mean, I was curious to see how this was going to stand up against it. I think did we rate that a 9 or 9.5 or?
I think Old North is the highest we've done, and again, this is our 11th episode. So one more thing I'll say, and then we can get to the rating. This has a very, for lack of a better word, classic taste. Mm-hmm. It's a taste you would expect from a brewery that mass produces their beer and ships it all over the world. Again, this comes out of what is now known as the Czech Republic, and obviously mass produced for going on 200 years, but a very classic taste.
Yeah, it's the standard. I mean, really, when you go to a bar and you order their Pilsner, you're kind of hoping it's going to measure up to this. It's going to be something like this. I mean, this is what I think other Pilsners try to live up to.
All right. Well, let's see. You want me to go first?
Why don't you go first?
Okay.
I'm still debating.
I'm gonna rate this based on just the way it tastes to me, the way it smells, the way it looks, what I feel when I'm drinking it. And again, unlike a lot of other beers we've done on this podcast, I've had this before, but it's been a while. I mean, it's probably been 10 or 15 years since I had this. I think it's a top-notch Pilsner, and I'm not going to rate on how popular the brewery is, and I'm not going to rate on precedent or anything like that. But this is good to me. Just as far as an easy drinking Pilsner goes, the classic world beer taste. I'll try to come up with a better way to say that too before the next podcast. But I would, for a Pilsner, I'm gonna go and give it an 8. I mean, I think it's for the beer that it is, and I'm not comparing it to anything else. I think it's a solid 8 for me.
So I'm going to give it a 9 because it's one of my top beers ever. I will say, and I probably shouldn't say this, but recently I had my wife give me a blind taste test between this and the Old North Lager, which I compare this to, and the Old North Lager actually won out. So I can't remember what I rated that one. I think it was a 9 or 9.5, but this is so close to it. And it's just an excellent beer, and I love every minute of it. I wish we had more of them to drink this week, and we only brought 2. So,
well, guys, we appreciate you tuning in again and again. Like John says, if you're enjoying it, hit the like button, subscribe if you want to, and then they'll automatically show up in your subscribe folder of YouTube. And like we've said, guys, we're just trying to bring you beers. We're not going to get complicated with it. So if you're looking through YouTube and you see a particular beer that you think you might like, watch the video for a few minutes.
Yeah, we're going to keep bringing you more content, and hope you're enjoying it. So we'll see you guys the next time.
Thanks, y'all.